Welcome to Final Expense Telesales. My name is Dana Neeson. Thank you so much for being here and joining me on this Friday. I'm coming here today to share a story with you, a story that left me devastated, just so broken and shattered. And I'm bringing the person on to redeem himself and tell his side of the story. You might be familiar with who he is. He is a multi-million-dollar producer. He is everywhere on social media, on YouTube, on Instagram, on all the things that I'm not. And you can't be an insurance agent without knowing his name. Welcome, David Price.
Thank you. It's really sweet. I appreciate you. I'm sure you're not devastated. It looks like you're doing really good now. So like I said earlier,
No,
super
that's
happy
for
for you.
drama purposes.
Yeah, right. You got to
Of
make it for the
course.
video.
And so I'm really excited to have you on. And we were just talking before we hit record on this thing that one of the things that I want to talk about before we go back and share the story that I want people to know is I also think it's important for life insurance agents to know that underneath all of the chatter and the gossip and the who's better than who, that we're all here to support everybody. Like I fully support you and everything that you're doing with your agents. And I feel that support from you to me. And I think it's important that we just kind of share that with everybody, that there doesn't have to be so much animosity between companies.
Yeah, it's funny because I look at the people that have time to fight and do that stuff, like they're missing the point, right? Because I, I feel like if an agent's making money and they're helping clients, they don't really have time to fighting and arguing and who's better and who's this and who's that for sure. And there's so many people. Like there's like your business, no matter how big you get, no matter how many people you hire, like it's not going to affect mine at all, right? Unless I let it, right, internally. But there's plenty of people looking for insurance every single day. That you can have your clients. I can have my clients. I
Mhm.
was at a network marketing meeting years ago, and the guy drew a big circle on the wall, and he said this was the health and wellness industry, and he put a little dot in this like giant circle, and he's like, if you had that much, you'd be ultra successful. And that's what I feel like. The industry is so
Yeah.
big. You just need a tiny dot to be ultra successful. So there's no reason you got to worry about someone else's dot, and that's how I feel.
And same with just agents. There's so many agents that are looking for a home and there's supposed to be options, right? I mean, how boring would it be if there was just one company monopolizing the whole industry? I mean, that would ultimately lead to corruption, I'm sure. But I want to take this back. I want to share the story because I even remember certain things that you probably don't. And so we're just going to clear the air.
Let's do it.
And so, all right, back in 2020, I was making a career shift. I had worked at the same company for 7 years and I was ready to make a move, and life insurance, final expense life insurance had fallen into my lap. And one of the very first ZipRecruiter ads I responded to about it was your superstar agent, Bianca. And I remember her mom called me to schedule the appointment, and I had my first meeting with her. And at the same time, I was also scheduling meetings with other companies as well. But she was one of the first people I spoke to. And I think she had only been in the industry at that point for a year. I think she's a year ahead of me. And my husband was there, and he's an entrepreneur, and he's done merchant services in the past, so he understands like residual based business. And the conversation just kind of left me, or left us, like, I still don't get it, right? I still don't understand how this works. And I think we were kind of being like that annoying potential agent that like asks too many questions, which I didn't know that at the time, because here I am just exploring a brand new business and my husband's like into the weeds trying to figure it out from a business perspective. And so we had requested a meeting with you. Now, before we fast forward to that meeting, what was that conversation like between you and Bianca?
Yeah, so
You
it's like I
remember
said,
that?
Bianca was newer. She started in, let's see, she started in April of 2019, right? I remember that date because she's one of my not my success story, but one of the success stories we had, right? She's a success story, she's not my success story.
Oh, okay.
Um, but yeah, I remember, she was really excited about you. And she wanted me to talk to you, and she was excited. That's what she was. She was
Okay.
really excited. And it's funny that you said you're probably that annoying person that had too many questions, because you've dealt with that person, right? You've dealt with
Oh
that person.
yeah, absolutely.
Now you understand. You're like, wait, this is what happened. But yeah, and then I remember she wanted me to talk to you, but the red flag, right? And again, obviously, I think you reached out to me a couple years ago or something and reminded me that you're the person that I interviewed. So obviously I made a mistake and had a bad judgment call on this. We go deeper into that. But the first red flag was when I needed to interview with you and your husband, right? So like
Okay.
typically that's never gone well, right? So everything I have is based off of experience, right? And
Sure.
obviously rules don't always stay to be the same, but anyone I've interviewed. And then the other thing is I noticed is, when you hire somebody, and you know this all by now too, is like you're hiring the spouse as well, right? Or the significant other,
Oh yeah,
right?
they have to be on board.
Yeah, and a lot of times what happened, I lost so many good agents because the significant other didn't understand, right? They had an employee mindset. They didn't want them doing this. They didn't want them doing that. They didn't understand. They didn't think, whatever it was, right? So like that's the first thing. I'm like, all right, well now we got two people that have a lot of questions. But Bianca was 100% excited. She's never said anything to me afterwards, but I'm sure she's probably like, yeah, Davey screwed that one up for me, right?
So for some more context, let me give you some of the questions that we were asking, right?
Sure.
Because before we got you on the phone, I had asked for like a breakdown of like the commission structure and how the residuals would work, or renewals, we call them in this industry. And she didn't have anything to send me. And I thought, for me, that was a red flag. I was like, what do you mean you don't have anything to send me? Like, that doesn't make any sense to me. So when I'm making my calls and looking around, I've always used to being like, well, I want to see like the numbers in writing. I want to see what that looks like. So eventually I got sent over like a 1-page document that listed like all the different ways that sales would get paid for like 10 different products, and then how renewals were paid for that. And the whole thing was so confusing. And that's when we had requested the call from you. I was like, I don't get this. Can you please explain it? And I was like, line item by line item to help me understand. And so, what was that like for you on the receiving end of that? Because I think you were actually driving too in your car, and how we received it, it was like, you can't be bothered.
Really. So, geez, I don't remember driving, but it's definitely possible. So, the first thing, right? You got to remember. So, you got your license what year?
2020.
2020. So I got my license 2018, right?
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, I mean, I still consider myself a baby in the industry, and I'm sure
Sure.
you do too,
I
right? We
do.
got a lot
Yeah.
to learn. Right. So I was, I was 2 years in. So 2020, I'm trying to think. So I stopped writing in 2019, like
Mhm.
July of 2019.
Okay.
So, it was all definitely lack of experience with a lot of things, right? So for
Yeah.
instance, somebody wants to know how to get paid now, I'm going to send them that sheet like as fast as possible, right? Like here you go, right? To answer those questions. But a lot of the hiring I did really up until then, I really just started using ZipRecruiter and other paid advertisements, but most of my
Uh-huh.
hiring was like warm market, right? It was people with relationships, and it was people that were just like Bianca's a great example. Bianca was just like, came work with me. She's like, what I do? I was like, here's leads, go to their house, go knock on the door, make sales, right? And she's like,
Right.
okay.
It was easier.
You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And like,
Yes, that
for
trust was
her,
already established.
yeah, the trust was established
Yeah.
exactly, right? And I've had a lot of good success stories. So like she started in April. So her first year was like 90 grand, right? And then the next one was over like that year, 2020. Yeah, she made over $200,000 in 2020, right?
Mhm.
So it's like I'm just, to me in my head, right? My thought process is like, dude, we
Yeah.
got to work on the system. It works. Like, trust it. Let's go. I don't need people that have questions, right? And
Right.
again, lack of experience, because obviously how you get paid is an extremely important thing to know. Especially when you're, starting a business, right? Because that's what you're doing, right? You started a business. But yeah, that was definitely my thought process then. And I think about myself. So even myself, so when I got started, the only really questions that I was worried about was leads,
Mhm.
Is there people interested in the product I'm going to sell, and mentorship?
Yeah.
Like me, I started on an 80% comp, right? You
Mhm.
know, and if you go to like a Facebook group or you start asking some brokers or asking some people, they probably would have talked me out of it, right? And obviously it worked out for me. Well, you know, you're doing great and amazing things. So, you know, it's those one little thing doesn't really matter. So for me, I wasn't worried about a lot of those details. I didn't know how to get paid when I first started, you know, and I got my license. So for me, it was like hard for me to wrap my mind around that stuff because I wasn't a detailed person, right?
Yeah.
And it was like my thing when someone's like, they would tell me in an interview, I'm a detail person. I'm like, all right, well, I haven't had a detail person have success yet, you know? But again, like, you know,
But
I
I know
was,
what you mean. I know what you
yeah,
mean by that because I've had people in the past, and this had less to do with like how they would get paid, but I've had someone send me, I'm going to say like 3-page email on asking me questions about life insurance, like just how it works, like wanting to understand so much more than what's necessary to explain to a customer on a conversation. And I have definitely been guilty of being like, this person's not going to make it. Right. And so I totally get it. But knowing, so let me go back again. So one of the questions I had asked, because I think at that time, you guys were telling me that I was asking, well, how many leads do I need to buy, right, in order to make X amount per month? And when I was doing the numbers, I was like, and I come from telesales, I was like, I just don't know. Like, do you have a free lead program where I could take a reduced commission, right? And I
yeah.
think this was like a second conversation or something like that. And so, what was your reaction when I asked that?
I'm trying to remember because I did a free lead program. So my first, I'm trying to bring myself back. So I said 2018. I hired my first like agent that actually went to work in December, and she did not need free leads. She just went to work and made a bunch of sales.
Yeah.
But then around 2019 ish, probably I introduced the free lead program.
Yeah.
Nothing, nothing as complex or anything like yours, right? We were field agents at the time, so
Sure.
I would give an agent 10 direct mail leads or brand new direct mail leads. And then I look at the production. If they wrote X amount of production, I gave them 10 more. Every time they certain amount, I just give them more leads, and they're on it was a 60% comp, so it was a lower comp. So I did that for a while to really build up the foundation of my agency. But then I started getting away from it because what I started realizing, and I'm not gonna, like free lead programs absolutely amazing. Paid lead programs are also like there's people that thrive on both
Sure.
both ends. But for what I started realizing is spending the money on the free leads, maybe if I took that money and was looking for agents, right? Marketing, right? Spending on ZipRecruiter,
Yeah.
I would get better bang for my buck, right? So that's when I started kind of changing my mindset and my thought process on that. So that might be the time you came. Did I offer you free leads or did I tell you
No,
that was an option?
no, you didn't. But you know what's interesting about the way that you chose to do that business model and why I would automatically, if we were friends at that time and you said, hey, I think I want to do this, I would have told you absolutely not. That's a big mistake. Because if like, I don't assign leads to agents, right?
Hmm.
So I don't say like, hey, here's your 10 leads, here's your list of leads to call, work those leads. I completely lose total control over like what they're going to do with those leads. So
Hmm.
like if you aren't monitoring and like having a full control over the life cycle of that lead and how the agent is working it, you're just throwing money in the trash can because you already know that the biggest percentage of agents aren't going to put in the work that you would do to close those leads, and that's probably what you ended up finding.
Yeah, I mean, so the field was a little bit easier to manage than the phone for some reason, well, I'm sorry, with managing without using tools, right? You use a CRM, right? You have a lot of, tech that you're using, right? So me giving someone 10 direct mail leads and say, here, go to work, right? There's no tech involved
There's
there,
no
right?
like, there's you can't manage a
Yeah,
process.
exactly.
Yeah.
But again, like you could tell real fast if agents go to work or not. And if you
Yeah.
give them 10 leads, like they're making some sales, like it was easy, and it was easy to manage at a small scale. But yeah, you're right. Once you start switching to the phone, you really got to start optimizing a lot more. And I wasn't there. Like we're doing field sales. We switched to phone. So you started after COVID?
I started in November of 2020. I had all of my conversations with the people I wanted to have in October.
Uh-huh. Okay. Yeah, I'm trying to remember. Yeah, because I mean, COVID's what's forced us to switch to the phone, right? And again, we did it real prehistoric. I mean, at first when we were working on the phone, we are doing it with direct mail leads, right? Which is not ideal, right? For selling on the phone, especially when you have a direct mail lead without a phone number, right? So that was like the that's how we did it back then, because we knew direct mail, and then obviously and it's cool, like going through like the timeline and the watching the evolve. And I'm sure you have a really cool timeline and how you evolved your free telesales system as well. But yeah, that was the thing. So I started getting off the free lead thing, and figuring out spending the money to find agents that can spend money on leads was working better. And again, in the back of my head too, now, right now, again, I'm a lot further down the road. Now I'm like, man, I need to spend some time and create a free lead program, right? Like that's in the back of my head, but it's also a whole
A lot of
nother.
work.
Exactly. It's like, do I have that much time to invest in it, right? That's exactly the thought,
A
right?
lot of work.
Like I know it's something I want to do, but it's like you have to look at the priority list. I'm like, well, I'm doing pretty well now. Like maybe I'll wait on that. Maybe I'll wait till Dana sets the next Dana comes and sets an interview up with me and says, I
There
want
you
to do a
go. And
telesales
says that I'll
program.
build
I've
it.
been waiting for you. Where you been?
So the rest of that conversation was basically like I left. So I left that conversation like none of my questions were really answered. I really didn't understand how this worked. It felt MLM-y to me because I was saying, well, it was a lot of like, well, you just bring someone under you and then they start their own business, and then you bring someone under you and they start their own business. And now that I understand the business, there's really nothing wrong with that. It just wasn't what I was looking for. And I didn't think my questions were answered, and I didn't feel like I had gotten, yeah, like the attention that I needed in order to feel like, okay, this was the way I needed to go. And so ultimately I was so close to signing, like so close to signing. And then I had that conversation with you and I went,
Oh, great. Now Bianca's really gonna hate me. Hopefully she don't
but
see this.
and then the road led me to Adam, who was the last person I spoke with, and he had spent probably 2 hours on the phone with me the first time we talked, and we kind of mapped out a whole business model for building a free lead telesales program, and of course, the rest is history. But it has been really fun to become friendly with you online and to watch your success and to know what's possible. Like you where you are is so cool for me to see because I know like what's possible for me. Right? Because you always want to be chasing someone that's higher than you. And I know you've shared that with me before that you're trying to chase people that are higher than you. And so I love that. And I know that you're not going to stop. So that encourages me to not stop too, because I'm coming after you now.
Yeah, I know you're coming pretty hard. You're doing a great job. Every time I see something, I've been, I see your scorecard. I think Adam posts the quarterly, or what, so he does like 1 week, 2 weekend, 3 weekend or something like that, or the
Yeah, he
cutoff
and
he
he does
calls
based
it. I
on what's
forgot how
like
he was it.
issued.
Yeah.
Yeah, he does
Yeah.
like
So
the weekly cutoff stuff.
yes, so I keep seeing your numbers getting bigger and bigger. So again, I'm super happy for you. I've spoken to Adam a few times, man. Seems like a really, really good dude. And just, I'm really glad that you did find him, and that he was in a place, that he was in that place. You know what I mean? Like you called me today, like I think it probably would have been a whole different, different story, right?
Sure.
back then I was interviewing, tons and tons of people and I was doing the interviewing and stuff like that, right? So I'm just like, oh, another person with their husband, like really with a bunch of questions, right? Like the feeling
Totally.
you got was probably the exact feeling I was hoping you would get. Like, I don't want nothing to do with this. Like, really, I got to hire this girl, then I got to deal with her with all these questions.
You're
Um,
right. No, but you're totally right, and I get it. Have you learned anything from it, or do you think you probably would have still done the same thing?
again, I think it really just has to do with timing. I think has to do where I was at as an agency at
Okay.
that time. Like,
Yeah.
I don't think even like I don't think I could have gave you what you wanted then.
Yeah.
Or what you're looking for. Like like to be honest, like I don't think I could have gave you what you're looking for. Like today I can. Like today's simple. You know what I mean? Like, let's sign the contract. I'm ready. You know what I mean? And not just based off of the success that you're having and like easy to say it now, but like, I'm in a whole different place now. We developed the telesales, program a lot
Yeah.
more. You know what I mean? I'm looking for telesales lead. You know what I mean? Like I could hire agents all day long. It's leaders, people that are willing to work with agents the way you are, that are super
Right.
committed
Right.
on all of
Hard to
that.
find.
That's a lot harder. So it's just where I was at that time. So
So let's just take the last few minutes, and I really just want to talk about just a different theme of the industry that always kind of weighs on my mind when I see videos that attack other agencies. And that for anyone that's watching this, I want to encourage you to like steer away from some of that noise, because at the end of the day, this isn't about, is Lincoln Heritage better than Senior Life? Is Senior Life better than Lincoln Heritage? Or should I be a broker? And what's in the best interest? The best interest of the client is this company, this product. That, like, at the end of the day, we are all trying to do the same thing, which is not put our client in X policy. We're trying to get them to change their situation and protect their family. And if whether that's Senior Life or whether that's Lincoln Heritage or whether that's American Amicable or Mutual of Omaha, we are all doing the same thing and the right thing. What are your thoughts on that, David?
yeah, I mean, just like I shared earlier before, I mean, the people that are making the money don't have time to fight. I mean, there's so much business out there. There's so many clients. Like people just need our help, and there's no reason, like there's no, that's like a lack mindset, right? There's plenty of people out there that need our help. There's not one perfect fit for every single person. And honestly, I believe that most of the people that are making the money in this industry all talk and collaborate and are friends, right? I
Yeah.
don't have beef with anyone in this industry. I mean, I speak to people, top leaders from basically every single company. And, sometimes when I'm looking for advice or, there's people further down the road than me. And when I run into a question, I'm just like, man, I feel like I know what I'm doing here, but, maybe I'm wrong. Let me call somebody that's further down the road and see what their thought is on this and make sure I'm in line with where I want to be, or make sure my ego is not going on chat. There's a lot of different things that we deal with doing with so many people. But at the end of the day, if we just all focus on helping the clients and helping the agents and stop fighting in Facebook groups, I think it'd be a
Right.
better place,
Those
right?
Facebook groups. Oh my God. So, one of the things that I really have enjoyed about watching your journey recently, and I don't even know if you remember this, but you'd been going to like a lot of these like masterminds, and not really have anything to do with insurance, but just being around influencers and business people and like really paying to have a seat at the table to start expanding who you are as an entrepreneur outside of your bubble at Senior Life. And that has been so cool to watch, because that is something that I want to end up doing in the future. And when did you decide to do that, and what has that done for you?
Yeah, I think these like base so once I get to the end of the year, like around this time, right, I started thinking about the successes that we had for the year, and then I'm like, all right, what am I gonna do next year to make sure I don't have a repeat? Because I did have a repeat. We did like 3.6 million one year, then the following year we did 4 million. And
Mhm.
before that, we're having like 50, 100% growth year over year. I'm like, how did that happen? I'm like, well, I did the same exact thing. I got the same exact results.
Yeah.
So now I make a point to make sure that doesn't happen. So it was last year, right around Christmas time. I decided, listen, I'm going to start getting around more people. And when I spend time around people that are more successful than me, it's like, all right, Dave, you haven't made it, right? Like that's what happens, And I'm like, all right, and it makes me because sometimes you feel like you're the hardest worker in the room, and you're doing more than anyone else, and then you get in a different room, and you're like, oh wow, yeah, I need to get to work, right? Like I didn't make it, so that I made a real big point to do that. I set up for a trip to Cancun with Ryan Panetta.
Yeah.
Um, at the end of the year. I just bought the plane ticket for that. But again, like, just I've never spoken to him before, but just doing things to build the relationships. Like you said, masterminds and trying to keep your right the trying to increase the circle, right? Make sure the people I talk to on a regular basis are having more success than me, and they could help steer me in the right way.
I love that. I love that so much. And I have been watching that from a distance. And I'm not quite ready to expand to that level yet because I feel like I'm just so in a sinkhole sometimes with still building, this. But I keep doing it because it keeps motivating me.
I appreciate it. It will come. I think like I go through like spots where I'm like, man, I have no time to breathe.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden I start, working on automating and putting people in place and then all of a sudden I'm like, I got too much time. And then, and then I start feeling like a little bit weight off my shoulders. And then I'll do some other kind of commitment to get me back feeling like I can't breathe again, right? And I think that's where you probably thrive the best because I see you're definitely putting a ton of work in. So I know that you do enjoy the grind for sure. So as soon as you get that breath of fresh air, you'll know it's time.
That's a really good point. That's a really good point. Um, well, it was pretty much everything I wanted to share. And just that despite it all, I think that it worked out well. I'm super happy with where I landed and what we're building. And I'm glad that we ended up reconnecting and are able to celebrate each other and be, equals at this point. And is there anything else you'd like to say?
No, I appreciate you. Thank you for taking it easy on me. I saw the Instagram story. I was like, oh, wait a second. Maybe I need a no show. And then I would have saw the story about Dave Price no showed me again. But yeah, no, super happy. I'm keep watching and I'm sure one day we'll be sitting at a dinner table together or doing a
Yeah,
mastermind or something together and we could tell some more war stories.
I love it. Thank you so much, David.
No problem. Thank you.